Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Sonia Iris Lozada. Oh, my goodness. And I know I say this about every actor that I talk to on this show, and I usually say, oh, my goodness. But oh, my goodness. I've never met Sonia before, which is the case with a lot of people I chat with because they are from all over the world. But as soon as we logged in and started chatting, I felt like I had known her my entire life. She is such an incredible human being with an amazing story to tell. She started with a career in fashion and then transitioned, as we all have, to acting and poetry. We talk about so many fascinating things, but one thing that really struck me when I was re-listening to our conversation is the idea of being a writer as well as an actor and how she visualizes things when she's writing. Being an actor, she says, makes her a very visual person. So when she writes her poetry, she writes thinking about how it would be acted. And we talk about this quite a bit, like that visualization. And a lot of her poetry, she's kind of working into making a mini series and stuff like that. When she writes, it's a great quote. She actually feels like she's cheating because she actually has these visualizations in her mind as an actor coming forth in her writing about how to make it into a visual product. Anyways, I'm rambling on, but it's such a fascinating thought. And I was kind of thinking, if I was a writer, how would I write? Would I write very visually? Do a lot of my actor friends write very visually? So I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts. Please enjoy this incredible human being who I felt like I've known my entire life, Sonia Iris Lozada. How did you get to Los Angeles and become who you are?
Well, I am originally from Chicago, and I went to study fashion design in Miami, which is not a hubbub for fashion design. But anyway, that's where I went because I wanted warm weather. And then I came back to Chicago, spent the summer there. Came out to Los Angeles to go to a fashion school here because there is a fashion industry here. Not like New York, but there is one. And they made the biggest mistake. They took me to a sweatshop, which is like a warehouse. And then they said, this is where you're going to work. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm going to college to work in a sweatshop? I quit like within the week because that's how you start. Unless you have a lot of money behind you, you start at basically a sweatshop. It looked like a sweatshop to me. I mean, I'm sure it was an okay company, but like a sweatshop. I know.
Wow.
And then I stayed here. I started working at the American Film Institute. And then I saw all these celebrities there and I'm like, why did I want to do fashion design? My first love is acting and entertainment. My mom's family are all musicians. And so I came from a musical background. And that's what I thought. I'm going to follow my dreams of being in bands and do all of that. And I did it. But then I go, I love music, but it's not what I really want to do. I fell into acting by accident. A friend of mine had a heart attack. He was older and he had a heart attack and he was not allowed to leave the house. So he said, because he was a working actor. He says, if you come on over, I'll give you free acting lessons. I just cannot be at home all the time. And that's how it started. And then I went to a wonderful man called Ed K. Martin. He passed away, but he took me in. He says, you're not ready for my main class yet, but I got 2 or 3 people. Let's do like a pre-class. Did the pre-class. And then he put me into his main course. Rene Russo was my classmate. I had all these famous people. I got intimidated. I did. I'm like, oh my God. It's like I had no idea there were going to be famous people or well-known people. There was a lot of TV working actors in his class. And I was going to give up because it was years later. I was going to give up. And he calls me up and he says, I want you to know, don't give up acting. You have so much potential. And so I did not know that he was calling me from his deathbed.
Oh,
he passed away the following week.
Oh my goodness.
So every time I try to quit, I keep hearing Ed's voice in my head. So yeah.
Now, tell me about, how did you know your first love was acting? Where did that come from?
I knew it was entertainment because when I was a little kid, I couldn't wait for people to come over so I could start dancing in front of them and pretending like little, get on a horse like I was a little horse, those horses that are on springs, so I could entertain them. Like if I was in a circus act, I mean, I'm sure they thought I was hysterical. It's like, look at this kid. But it's been in me, it's been part of me since I could remember. It just is. Yeah.
Cool. So you've taken these acting classes. How did you build your career from there? What did it look like from, when your mentor passed away? How did you build the career you have?
I just started doing a lot of theater, which I think is a good way to get practice. And it was small regional theater, so I did theater. And I sing, so then I started doing musicals. And then the easiest way to get your SAG card was see if a commercial agency will pick you up. So I wanted my SAG card, so I went. I said, well, let me do commercials. And I'm very grateful because that for the last 2 years has been supporting me, basically, because I booked a good commercial. But that's how I got into it. And then from there, I got to meet people and I met an agent. They said, well, let me pick you up. I'll start submitting you, blah, blah, blah. You got an interesting look, because my look was not interesting when I started. It was like, I was literally told I'm too ethnic looking. I will never work.
Oh my God.
And they thought they were helping me by telling me that.
Oh my God.
So then one said, then the Latin thing became a popular thing. And then I had agencies wanting to sign me.
Have you noticed? It's interesting. I talk to a lot of, BIPOC actors, API actors and stuff like that. The shift, especially honestly, since COVID, the shift in, the last person I chatted with is a good friend of mine. Her name is Carrie Kwong, and she's originally from mainland China. And she's like, before COVID, all I was auditioning for was like corner store clerk, laundromat owner, right? Classic Asian stereotype. Have you noticed a shift? For now, you're just like, look, I'm now part of the population. So,
yeah, exactly. Because I was always the maid or the nanny. And I remember my agent, they knew I didn't want to do any more maids. Excuse me. I didn't want to do any more maid stuff. So I said, they came to me and he said, I know you're going to want to say no, but it's this movie and it got all these celebrities in it and it's with, and I'm like trying to stop him. I'm like, no, absolutely not. I told you I do not want to be a maid anymore. I find it insulting. I'm actually a high, like I was the top of my class in college. It's like, I should not be playing a maid. And so he says, it's with Harrison Ford. I go, oh, okay.
I will be whatever you want me to be.
Yeah, because he was on my bucket list of someone I've always wanted to work with. So even though I didn't want the role of the maid, it was actually fun because I ended up working extra because of the actors. He was one of them, and he was like teasing me, and he came up to me and he goes, hi, I'm Harrison Ford. And without even thinking, I said, well, duh. And then I'm like, oh no. And then he started laughing. He thought it was funny because it was like, really?
Yeah. That's so funny. He's introducing himself. You're like,
Really?
Would you find, and I think like, when it's something as high caliber as that, is there a difference? And maybe this is a very snarky question, but like, I think about myself, who I go out for nurse roles all the time. Like, it's like nurse or like, female, right? Like female at bar number 2. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
There's a difference between like this sounds so bad. Nurse in like the indie film and the nurse in a Harrison Ford film. You're like, there's a reason why in the Harrison Ford film, there's a reason why your character is there. You aren't just like frivolously there as like the background made fluff.
Yes.
Like, there's a reason why they need you there.
Mm-hmm.
Where in other projects, I'm like, there's no reason for me to be bartender number 5.
Yeah.
It's insulting. I find that less insulting. I don't know what's wrong. Maybe I should ask my therapist. But like, what are your thoughts?
Well, on that one, I can see where I was a housekeeper. I was a housekeeper to, I'm so bad with names. He did the original Mission Impossible, the TV version.
Ooh.
Anyway, he was on it. I was his housekeeper. Harrison Ford was playing a real estate agent who happens to be a homicide detective. And then, oh my God, I wish I would have looked this up before we got on. He is trying to sell a script. So he brings this script. So now he's being nice to me, but he's like a ladies' man. And at the end of him talking to me, we like kiss each other on the cheek and go. And then Harrison Ford just goes, because they're both there he's trying to sell a script, and because he wanted to be an actor. He was a homicide detective who wanted to be an actor.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
It's fun.
It's got a lot of quirkiness, a lot of celebrities in it.
Mm-hmm. What's it called, the movie? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah. Hollywood Homicide. It's an old movie. It was like 20 years old.
I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that has surprised you about the entertainment industry in your career?
Well, I don't think I answered your first question. Ooh. My role was there as a catalyst for him to try to sell his script. Oh, okay. So now, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Has there been anything that has surprised you about the entertainment industry?
Well, I think when you first go in, everybody's telling you the horror stories. I am blessed. There was only one set that was challenging. Mm-hmm. And you got to stay out of people's business. You cannot pick sides. Because sometimes people will talk to you. Huh. I was on this movie. I'm not going to say which one it is. And the lead actress did not get along with the director. So they were always arguing. Like, we all heard it. And I would go into the dressing room and they would complain about the director. Then I'd come outside and the director would be complaining to me about the actor. But I'm not going to get involved with that. And all I kept saying was, I understand. It was highly charged and you can't get in the middle of that. That's one thing that I would tell people, don't get in the middle of any gossip or intrigue. It's not going to benefit you in any way.
And I think we so often forget how tiny this industry is, because it can feel like there's so many people in it. And then also I think we often forget that like who's overhearing us, can have such an impact. Like it could be anyone from like crafty to like the, housekeeper, right?
Yeah.
You never know. And I think, I don't know.
You never know where they're going to be later either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have gotten calls in because people liked working with me. Mm-hmm. I'm not gossipy.
Yeah.
I do.
From your life in fashion design to now acting, are there any parallels that you've noticed? Anything you've brought in from that time of your life into now your acting career?
Not really.
No,
No, it was very different. I mean, I've used it for myself because I did costuming for, what is it called? AFI film, American Film Institute. I did I liked costuming. And I ended up liking interiors because they also taught us that in fashion school. And I used that, but not really. Not really.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's more parallels with my writing and not
Ooh, tell
my...
me more. Yeah, tell me more about that.
Okay, I am a poet. I've been a poet since I was a little kid, you know. Of course, then it's roses are red, yet, you know, violets are blue. But now I wrote a book called Follow Akashic Dreaming Through Time. And one of the producers that I worked on a film with, him and I were starting to write. We thought maybe we could make these like film shorts to see if it would go somewhere else. It would make like a good little mini series. So we were working on that. And then the pandemic hit, and then that kind of fell to the wayside. I'm still going to take that poetry book and turn it into short stories because I did a lot of research per each one. It deals with historical things. So I am going to continue with that. And they translate into that. They translate into stories and I think because I'm an actor and I'm in entertainment, I write stuff that could easily be made into a film or a TV. You know, I'm actually going to start taking a pilot class so that I could take one of my things and create a pilot.
Yeah, I wonder, like, when you write, do you have that visual? I could see how this would play out on screen. Do you see? Is that what you see?
Yeah, actually, it kind of is weird because it comes to me that way.
Oh, wow. Cool.
You know, I feel like I sometimes cheat because I didn't really create the story. It's like I visualized it and then I wrote it down. It's like something's giving me information. Now, granted, it's not giving me everything. One of my poems has to deal with pottery. And I got it through dreaming. For some reason, for a week, I kept getting these ideas. But I saw a guy doing pottery, very sad. And then you could tell there was a kiln burning and you could see on the wall, the colors of it. It, you know, was very pretty, but he was so sad. And then I saw the date, 300 BC. So I'm like, wow, okay. So that's all I had. And then I started researching. I went, what kind of pottery was in 300 BC? I went to Europe, to South America, Africa. When I got to the terracotta soldiers, I said, that's it. And then I started doing research about the emperor, Jin Shi Huang, and, you know, how an artisan was treated at that time, while they were building this. And that's how I came up with that one. That's why there's so much research behind it. That's easy to make a short story out of it, easy to make something else out of it. But that's how I normally get my stories.
That is so cool.
Oh, yeah. That's why I feel like it's like I see it. I mean, there's a lot of research that goes with it, but I feel like it's a gift to be able to see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so neat. Have you always been that way, do you think?
Kind of.
Yeah. And my like doctor brain is like, were you just born that way? Or was it developed because your family were artists as well too? Or maybe a little both.
You know, I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think because my mom's family was all musical. I mean, they made their own guitars. My heritage is from Puerto Rico. So they had the salsa music, you have the traditional Puerto Rican music, and I grew up with that. My dad is very analytical. So on his side is where I think I got the research bug. But so I can, continue what I see creatively. But I think that influence of parents, I think definitely it's inherited somehow. I just decided to pursue it.
Yeah. Did you ever have anyone say to you, maybe fashion or maybe acting isn't a logical career choice? Like you should be more like analytical, pragmatic growing up?
My mom, she said, I don't think you're going to make much money doing what you love, but you got to do what you love. And that's the most of it. I was the creative woo-woo one in the family. So, yeah, it wasn't fault.
Yeah. I think that's really neat. I think, it's tough because we don't reward careers in whimsy, as I like to call it, in society with what we deem as rewarding, which, is monetary value, but truly what exists over time and like what provides the entertainment for the existence of the world are the storytellers, are the creatives, right?
Exactly.
When all things come down to like, in the pandemic, what did we cling on to? And it was like story, plays,
yeah.
right?
Something that's not bad.
Oh,
I'm tired of the news. Let me watch something so that I can like escape into something that's not death. I mean, I stopped watching the news.
Oh gosh,
during the pandemic. Yeah. I would watch if it was going up, how many more people, but it's just that I feel we needed to go through the pandemic.
Yeah, I feel the same.
It was something like a cleansing, and I was really hoping that it would get society more together. I think it actually did the opposite of that.
Yeah.
You saw more separation.
Yeah, I think, and also the separation became really evident, and I think that really messed with a lot of people. Like I know that made me and a lot of my friends that I know upset and stopping watching the news because I think we've always known there was a divide in society, but it made it so much more apparent. And for those of us who are like, I don't like being on this swinging pendulum back and forth, it was like, oh, this hurts even more.
It does. Because like the same thing. I knew it was there, but so blatantly there. And you know what? I don't understand it. I went to therapy and said to my therapist, I go, why am I so upset? And I don't understand hatred for hatred's sake. I don't understand, greed for greed's sake. I just don't understand it. And like I've watched some true crime because I was addicted to that for a little bit. And then I said the same thing all the time. I can't believe people do this to each other. Yeah. How do you do this to each other? Do you know how much energy it takes to hate someone or to purposely be greedy? I'd rather take my energy and put it into something positive. I just don't get it. I don't get why you want to squander your energy like that.
Yeah. Did your therapist have an answer?
No.
And I agree, right? Is there one you can't really understand, especially when we come at it from where our brains are with a complete, why?
Exactly. It was difficult to understand because I grew up Christian and now I could just say I'm just spiritual. But I have friends of all types of religion. And it's not like, oh, you're different. It was, oh, tell me about your holidays. Tell me about how you celebrate. I was more curious about. Yeah. And I think curiosity, you got to have curiosity. That is the death of you because you could stew on the knowledge you learn, which is just basically perceptions.
Oh, yeah. I think people struggle, and I wonder, I'd love your thoughts on this. I think people struggle because curiosity does take energy. It is easier for the most part, just kind of sit and rest on laurels, right? Be like, yeah, this is what I believe and nobody can change it. But when being kind of confronted with new ideas and instead of being angry, being curious, actually, it takes a lot. Yeah. Do you find like how do you keep yourself curious?
I like to learn. So, I mean, that's where I think that my curiosity comes from. And I'm sure a lot of other people do this. You get on the internet, you find one thing and that's interesting. You go to the next one and you go on this loop. 2 hours later, you're, it's like, oh my God, I spent 2 hours and did nothing.
Yeah, I know everything there is about trains. Yeah.
Yes. And I love trains too. And I look up things like about the forest and ancient history and things they discovered. And even though I'm not a religious person, I like scripture. I like to see how people believe in scripture. So my stuff is vast. I love physics. I have to read the same thing about 100 times to try to grasp it, but I like physics. And so the curiosity I have is because I have the need to learn. And I don't feel like I know enough. You know, if you look at how much there is to learn in the world, we know this much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and some people think they know everything. And it's like, when you think you know everything and you don't want to advance, you're going to kill off your brain cells because you're not using them. It's a muscle.
Yes.
So that's another thing, you know. My mom passed away, and she had dementia.
Mm.
You know, my dad, no sign of dementia, and he's, you know, elderly now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that you have to use it. You have to be curious.
Yeah.
And you have to be grateful. When you start practicing gratitude, your whole world changes.
Yeah. Do you find, like, how does your practice of curiosity and gratitude impact your acting career, or just your acting in general?
There was one point that I was going to quit acting because I pursued it for so many years, and I sacrificed quite a bit to be in the industry, and it did not pay off.
Yeah.
So I decided, well, you know, I do meditations also. I'm a teacher on Insight Timer. And I wrote one about grieving dreams. And I grieved my dream of being an entertainer. And I think many people do that. You go through a grieving process when you have to let go of a dream because it hasn't worked out for you. So while I did that, once I let it go, then I started booking. Because it's not my acting that was in question. I think because I wanted it so bad, I came across as desperate. And nobody wants to work with a desperate person. Yeah. So I think that once I switched that and became grateful for just getting the job and being on the set, people picked that up. You know, I ended up recurring on Bosch Legacy, wonderful crew and actors. I mean, the nicest people behind the scenes. And I went there for one day. I thought, you know, I did season, was it 2? And then I went back for season 3. And yeah, season 3 is coming out this fall. And then they created a storyline because I play the mother of one of the detectives as a series regular. So they created a storyline for her, and that included me. So I ended up one time being on the thing, ended up coming back a couple times. And that I really think has to do with how easy you fit in. You know, if you go on a set and it's tense, you don't want to be part of that set. Yeah. But when you go into a set and you have all these like wonderful people and everybody's friendly and says hello and blah, 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 you enjoy being there and you're very grateful. And I think being grateful just to get the job, I've seen people sabotage, because I've been on jobs where I've seen actors just sabotage themselves. It's like, you have this show now, but with that attitude, I don't think you're going to get another one. And some of them I have never seen act again. Because you do people do talk.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Do you have any advice? I mean, you've already given so much advice, but any advice for people? Most of my listeners are people who have changed careers into acting. Do you have any advice for people who are kind of missing that curiosity piece, that artistic piece in their life?
You know how I think part of it is you have to get out. And you can go for a walk. Look at nature. I bet you on that walk, you're going to notice there's a leaf here, there's a flower here, there's a broken fence here, and start really looking around you. You need something that's going to charge your curiosity. And I think you do 2 things. You charge your curiosity and you get some exercise. But you need to, because that's the world of acting. You know, as an actor, you don't walk into a room and you just know everything's there. No, you walk into a room, if you've never been there before, you're going to look around the room. You're going to not just dash to a certain section because you don't know it exists. That is practice. Walk down the hallway or walk down in nature is what I like to do. And look, because you don't know as an actor what you're walking into. You need to experience your surroundings. Your surroundings tell your story. Yeah.
That is powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it immediately takes, for me, I'm like, oh, that immediately takes it out of me, and into like, almost like, who am I in service to? Like external. It takes it external.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. You're only part of the story, and you're one part of the story. You need to have the entire story. The audience sees the entire story.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to be part of it.
I love that.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have any favorite moments on set or funny stories?
Oh, well, the one about Harrison Ford was one of them.
Pretty great.
I've said this one on a friend of mine. He has a podcast, and I did it on here. And I live close to Warner Brothers. And at this point, I do have one. My very first TV show that I booked was ER.
Cool.
Yeah, that was my very first network TV show. And I was a crying widow because George Clooney's father killed my husband because he was drunk. I don't know if you remember the series, but his father was always drunk. And he kills my husband. So George Clooney and, I remember Dr. Green. I forget his real name.
I can picture him, but I don't.
Yeah. They came in because he wanted to basically show how sorry he was for that. So I'm working on that, and all my friends were like, "Oh my God, you get to work with George Clooney. He's so hot." And I'm like, I go, "Yeah, he's good looking, you know?" So I went on the set, and I tell you, that man reeks of charisma. I became such a fan on that day. And one of the things that made him very, I learned something from him that I thought was very interesting. When I go on the set and there are the extras and people wanting to get their autograph, and I find that, they want to get the autograph, so they like zoom in on the actor, and the actor sometimes backs up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the actors did back up. And when he saw George Clooney, when he saw them coming, he stepped forward. And they all got in line. I'm like, oh my God, did someone teach him that? Or is that natural? Because he claimed his space. Ever since I saw him do that, I'm like, I'm going to do that too. When something makes me fearful, I'm going to step forward and claim my space. And I keep remembering that, and that's how I deal with a difficult situation.
Wow.
Yeah, and I learned it from him.
George Clooney.
Yeah, what? I can see why he's so popular.
Yeah. And like, for me, I find for actors to do that, I mean, besides the fact that it's incredibly generous of them, it also must be so tricky because, like, here he is on set, I'm assuming having a very emotional scene with you, the crying widow. Like, he didn't.
We were in the same scene. He didn't actually talk to me.
Oh, but just like being on set, he has a job to do, and any actor has a job to do. They're coming on set. They may need to like start bawling their eyes out at any second because they go action. When there's like 50 people wanting their autograph, I find it really interesting how actors, again, this is why they're so good at their job, right? Because they can have like light switch on, I'm acting, light switch off, I'm now a very generous human being who's kind to other human beings. Like that to me is such a skill, and I'm just so impressed when that happens because I don't know how I would react in that situation.
The thing is, it's overwhelming. Like I interviewed my first guest on my Overheard at Chica's Cafe podcast was a musician, but he was like in the famous bands of the soul music Motown famous bands, and his name was Jerry Bell. And I said, I think fame is overwhelming. And he says, it really is. So for someone as famous as George Clooney to step forward, and he was super famous then too. is claiming his space shows a lot of character to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, because fame is overwhelming. Yeah.
Do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up?
Well, I'm always excited when I'm put on hold, but I'm not so excited when I'm released.
Oh, it just happened to me a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's like you're on hold or you're on avail, depending if it's film or TV or commercial.
Mm-hmm. Right
now, I am on hold for a voiceover, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't count on them until they happen. Mm-hmm. When I do it, I have fun, and I had to learn this. It took me a long time to let it go because, I really want it. I really want it. Now I do it, go do something else. Because you have no control past that.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, you did your best. That's what it is. So you have to move on because you just waste so much energy for that. When you yearn for something, it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. And it's our finite resources, right? Time, energy, and money.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what do we do you can't get more of that back. How do you spend less of it, but also still, show that you care.
Exactly. And I think that's why the strike was very important because it was really abused. I mean, in terms of the self-taping, when you go into a casting office, they have a chair and maybe a table. But for some reason, they wanted you to be on location and it's like, no, you wouldn't do that for me. And I think it was very important for us to be on strike.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was quite eye-opening for a lot of different sectors of the entertainment industry.
Yeah. And I think also, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I think we're going to be recovering from it for a long time.
Yeah, I think we're finally getting into it. But now, there used to be seasons. Like you would shoot through September through maybe April. Mm-hmm. And then it became hiatus for many TV shows. But then in the summer, a lot of films would shoot and a lot of commercials would shoot. Now it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what time of the year it is. Which is kind of good because you could keep working. Because I have a friend who's a series regular on a TV show, and she, when they shoot, because now seasons are only 10 episodes. They're not the 24 they used to be. So you do have to find something else, because that's only 10 weeks out of a year.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
you
has
might
changed.
Shoot for 3 months, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap it up, tell me a bit about your podcasts.
Oh, okay. I have one that I started during the pandemic. And I know we spoke about this offline earlier. And it was because I saw people marching and I really felt I needed to do something. There was a desire to do something. And so I said, well, I'm not going to go marching because I'm afraid to get my butt out there and start marching during the middle of the pandemic. So what can I do? But I also saw the people that I did not agree with whatsoever. I saw that there was such fear in their eyes that I said, what can I do to have people understand? So that's why I started Poetic Resurrection. It has poetry, it has literature. My earlier episodes, except for this season, which is just literary fiction, deals with leadership. How to find joy. I had all these people on it. It was very educational. And it was conversational. I would ask them, well, how do you do leadership? How does this work? How does that work? And so that was my way of giving back because both sides need to come together. Mm-hmm. And if we understand what makes ourselves tick, what introspectively we feel, maybe we could be more understanding of others.
Whew.
And thank you. And then my next one, because that's heavy, my next one is Overheard at Chica's Cafe. I used to have 3. I have one, Chica and the Man. And it was me and this one guy, and we never knew what we were going to talk about. It was called As Unscripted as It Is, but he got busy, I got busy. And since I was doing the producing and the editing and all of that, we actually stopped it in September of last year. But Chica and Overheard at Chica's Cafe came out of an episode that we did on there. Because it sounded like you said earlier, like someone's listening to, you don't know who's listening to your conversation. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's about. It's like if we're at a cafe and someone's overhearing our conversation.
I love that.
And
stories are so important. It's so fun.
Yes, it is. And everybody's got one.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why if you have an interesting story and you're in entertainment, Overheard in Chica's Cafe. If there's I've interviewed people on Poetic Resurrection that don't have books. Mm-hmm. They're poets. And what I realized is a lot of poets, even well-known ones, they don't really have a lot of books out. Some of them just have poems in an anthology, but they don't have, because I've looked up some people I want to interview and I can't find a book on them. Then there's other ones that have like 20 books, but that is, what my 2 podcasts are about.
I love that. That's so great. I love the idea of story. Like, that's just my favorite thing. I said, my therapist asked me, she's like, if the doctor went away, if the actor went away, or if the podcast host went away, which one would you want to go away last? I'm like, podcast host. It's my favorite. Just chatting with people. There's just something that's so wonderful. And like, I love it.
I keep wanting to, like, I'm not going to do anymore because I have so much work. I produce it, I edit it, I do all the social media, I do everything.
Yes, me too.
But then I really like meeting people because I get to meet people I normally wouldn't meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really like that.
I love it. And I think that has been, at least for me, a huge benefit of the pandemic.
Yes.
Is doing this, like meeting people like yourself, being like, thank goodness for the pandemic. Otherwise, we wouldn't have online resources like this to connect with human beings literally all over the world.
Yes.
With amazing stories to tell.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
You're funny because I do the same thing on my podcast.
Do you really?
I have the same thing. Yes, exactly. Follow your dreams, but don't give your life to them. You still need to survive. If you follow your dreams, but you give your life to them, you become desperate. And with everything, when it comes to love, if you pursue someone so, tightly or deeply, they're going to want to run. It's like being in a cage. Mm-hmm. The same thing with career. Any career in entertainment. I would think any career, period. If 2 people have an equal talent, but one is easier to get along with and more social, the one with more social is going to get it because they know they're going to be easy to work with. So follow your dreams, enjoy it, be grateful. Be grateful for every opportunity. Be grateful for the auditions because that people can see that. I've worked with a friend of mine on the opposite side and they were casting a play. And you could tell who walked in that was desperate. It's like, wow, but their acting wasn't desperate, but their essence was, you could read energy. It's like walking into a room and 2 people were fighting. And they stopped fighting, no longer fight, but you could feel it. It's the same thing when you're a desperate actor or a desperate entertainer. Enjoy the ride. Be grateful. If you get stressed out, I do this myself. I meditate before I have an audition. And you have to have at least 5 minutes to yourself. And center yourself. Because you're going to get nervous. So if you're nervous before, you're going to even be more nervous in front of the casting person. Meditate. Take some deep breaths. And show them your talent. Go out there. There's enough room for everybody. Don't be jealous of another actor.
thank you everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Sonia, so much for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me. I absolutely loved our conversation. I'm putting all links in the show notes below for how to find Sonia, how to find all of her incredible poetry, et cetera, et cetera. She has a wonderful podcast as well, too. Definitely check out everything she is doing. And maybe go check out the Harrison Ford movie that she talked about. We shouldn't say what it is, but I'm 99.9% sure it's Hollywood Homicide. I'm going to go watch it tonight, and I will probably shriek very loudly and wake up my neighbors when I see Sonia come onto the screen. I hope you'll all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!